Hey, before we begin, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Enjoy.
Chapter 2. Nikki. More than a few hours had gone by, and I was starting to get irritated by the minute, because Tanisha's ass still wasn't back yet. It was now a little after 1 in the afternoon, and I had been trying to get a hold of this heifer ever since she stuck me with her kids around 8 this morning. But for some reason, the number I had to her cell wasn't working. Quincy was running a fever, and the baby was out of diapers. Plus, not to mention, there was no food in the fridge. She never once called to let me know what time she'd be back or to even check in on her kids. What type of mother leaves her kids on the street with a 16-year-old and doesn't call? I thought to myself as I looked out the window of the 4th floor apartment for the umpteenth time, hoping that I'd see her coming down the block. Once I put the 3 of them down for a nap, I decided to go across the hall and ask the lady who usually babysat for Rico if she knew how to get in contact with their mother. When she opened up the door, Miss Peterson, who was 70 years young, stood there in blue capri pants and a yellow blouse, holding her Pomeranian while looking me up and down, wondering who I was and why I was there. "Hi, Mrs. Peterson. I don't know if you remember me. You're that little girl who watches them babies from time to time, right?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. My name is Nikki. I was wondering if you possibly had Tanisha's cell phone number." She let out a slight laugh. "Where'd they mama run off to this time?" "I honestly don't know. She said that she'd be back in a couple of hours, but that was earlier this morning." Mrs. Peterson pursed her lips, then rolled her eyes as she mumbled something about young mothers under her breath. "I'm sorry, sweetie, but I don't have her number. I do, however, have the daddy's, but I'm only supposed to call if it's an emergency. Do you want that?" she asked me. "No, that's okay. I'm sure she'll be home soon. Thank you anyway, and I'm sorry to bother you," I said, knowing that her contacting Rico would just piss him off because he had already warned Tanisha about leaving her kids with me for hours on end. Plus, I had a feeling that if he knew I was in the apartment instead of at school while his baby mama was out doing only God knows what, and with who, then all hell would break loose, and I did not want to be around when that happened. Spice. "Man, this some bullshit. None of this was even my fault." I was frustrated as hell sitting in the principal's office while Miss Clarkston sat behind her desk with the phone to her ear talking to my sister, who had told me a couple of weeks ago that she'd whoop my ass if she got one more call about my behavior. The whole reason I was even in trouble was because some girls decided to jump on Velvet after 4th period. Hell, I wouldn't have even known about the damn fight if it wasn't for Ebony running up and telling me as I was coming out of my math class. I thought she was just over-exaggerating at first. But when we ran out to the courtyard and saw everybody crowding around, watching 4 girls jump on Velvet, I immediately sprung into action along with my homegirls Trish and Chi-Chi, who also jumped in to help my cousin out while Ebony's scary ass stood off to the side with the rest of the spectators egging on the fight. Of course, things went to a whole nother level when Velvet jumped to her feet and body slammed Ebony to the ground, swinging on her until security came to break everything up. While being escorted to the main office, Velvet claimed that Ebony was the cause of all of this, which of course Ebony denied, but I could care less. I had bigger things to worry about other than who started what or who threw the first punch. My ass was about to get suspended for the 2nd time this year, not just for getting involved, but for accidentally mistaking a teacher for one of the girls we were fighting. As I sat there in Miss Clarkston's office separate from the others, I felt the need to try and explain to her once she hung up with my sister that none of this was my fault, and all I was trying to do was protect my cousin, but of course she wasn't having it. "Keisha, I've already warned you time and time again about your tardiness, your behavior in class, just your attitude in general, and blatant disrespect towards authority is totally out of control. And frankly, I'm tired of it. You punching Mr. Wallach in the face was the last straw. It was an accident. No, it was uncalled for. And for that, I'm going to have to—" I was already upset as it is. And I knew that if I sat there for a second longer, I was going to say something that would have me in even more trouble. And the thought of my grandmother saying, Keisha, don't let your alligator mouth overload your jaybird ass, made me jump up out of the chair and storm out of the office before Miss Clarkston even had a chance to finish her sentence. When I got into the hallway, Ebony was standing there with her aunt, looking at me as if I was the one who punched her in the face. As I walked down the hall towards the door, she followed behind me, mumbling something to her aunt, then tried to get my attention by saying, I didn't start this shit, Keisha, so don't be mad at me 'cause it wasn't my fault your hoe-ass cousin got jumped. I didn't even respond. Whatever beef was going on between those two was the last thing on my mind. See, cousin, I told you not to trust that bitch. Now look, she done got us all suspended, Velvet said once I got outside. Whatever, bitch, you're the one who can't be trusted. I rolled my eyes and told Ebony to drop it as I walked over to Velvet, who was standing on the sidewalk, holding an ice pack in her hand, looking like she was ready to go for round two. Come on, Velvet, just let it go already. She ain't even worth it, Trish said in her usual calm voice as she held my cousin back. No, I ain't letting shit go. That bitch set me up. She told those girls to jump me. Why would I do that, Velvet? I should beat your ass just for lying on me, bitch. Keisha, who you gonna believe? Your best friend or your lying ass cousin? Ebony shouted. Me, bitch, who you think? We family. Velvet, just drop it and come on. I grabbed her by the arm and shouted. Yeah, bitch, you better listen to your cousin before you get your ass beat again, Ebony said before hopping in the car with her aunt. Who knows, Spice? Maybe she's telling the truth. I mean, I don't even know who started the whole thing, but the shit did look a little foul to me, Trish said, trying to reason with me as we walked down the street towards the store. I was a little surprised to hear Trish taking up for Velvet, especially since she really couldn't stand her gullible ass no way. Truth be told, Trish didn't really care too much for neither one of them heifers. I figured since Velvet was my cousin, she'd rather take her side, because we all knew that Trish wouldn't spit or even piss on Ebony if her ass was on fire. What really makes you think that she has something to do with it? I turned and asked them both once we got to the corner and waited for the light. She's related to one of the bitches that jumped me. Plus, she was with them when they ran up on me, talking all types of shit and laughing as if the shit was a joke. So I know she has something to do with it. Well, then why the fuck didn't you just walk away? Why are you getting upset with me? Velvet asked as if she didn't know that she was part of the problem. I just got suspended for helping you, which isn't a good thing because it's the second time I done got suspended this semester. And it's only October. I was so frustrated that I had to literally stop myself from punching my own cousin in the face. Not only did she not realize that my involvement in the fight could have possibly gotten me kicked out of school, but she was really testing my patience with this whole I don't trust Ebony because she's out to get me routine. As we stood there arguing about who was right and who was wrong, a car pulled up to the light and started honking its horn. We all looked to see who it was, and for a second I feared that it was my sister. But when I saw who was sitting in the driver's seat, I was able to breathe a sigh of relief. Spice, baby, is that you? What you doing out here? I got out early. Why? You want to give me a ride? I said, knowing that he'd find a way to take my mind off slapping the shit out of Velvet. Hell yeah, come on. Nikki. Once 3:15 p.m. hit, I waited an extra 35 minutes and then called my auntie to tell her where I was and why. She ended up coming by with a pack of diapers and a couple Happy Meals, then started going off. You should have told that hoe no and took your ass to school, she said as I started cleaning up the kitchen. I know, but she seemed desperate, I told her. That hoe was desperate, all right, desperate for some dick. Like everyone else, Red had made it very clear plenty of times that she didn't like Tanisha and felt that Rico could have done a whole lot better. And why the fuck you up in here cleaning like you Alice from the Brady Bunch? She questioned. Because the place is dirty and I don't want the baby to choke on anything while he's crawling around, especially not while I'm here. Yeah, you right, we don't want that. Look, it's finna be 5 o'clock. If her ass still ain't back by 5:30, you need to call Rico and tell him what the hell is going on. Well, she told me that she was going to the hospital because her aunt was sick. Maybe she had surgery or something. I said as I started to do the dishes. So what? I don't give a damn if her auntie had a fucking concussion. She could have took her kids with her if that was really the case, Red said as she walked over to the sink and turned off the water. Stop cleaning up her fucking mess. She's not paying you extra. Hell, she didn't even give you any money to watch these damn kids. You got your own damn child to worry about, Nikki. You're supposed to be doing all that you can to take care of him, but no, you rather be up over here taking care of her damn kids while that bitch is out running the damn streets. You and I had an agreement, and I told you that I would help you with the baby while you finish school. But you acting like this shit is a fucking joke. Red, it's not even like that. Oh, really, Nikki? Then tell me what it's like. Because you've barely been at school all week, and now you sitting up in here taking care of someone else's kids. I was on my way to school, and I told her that. I even tried to tell her that I didn't want to watch them, but she wasn't trying to hear me. She just left them standing there and said that her aunt was in the hospital. That's bullshit, Nikki, and you know it. Well, what do you want me to do, Red? Because I can't just leave them here by themselves. I'll tell you what. When she finally does come back, you better get your money from that hoe and tell her ass that I said she needs to watch her own fucking kids from now on. Shit. I sighed in an irritated manner and leaned against the counter, then looked over at the two little ones who sat at the table quietly eating their food as Red continued to go off. I knew that I should have been at school instead of in this apartment, but once their mother ran off, I felt I had no other choice, which made me wonder if I was doing the exact same thing as Tanisha with my own son. After my older brother went to prison, I slipped into a funk and let my mother's depression affect me, and I started feeling like no one was there for me or even cared about my well-being. So I started acting out. One night while my great aunt Gladys was laid up in the hospital, my cousin Peanut decided to throw a party at her house. I went there with the intention of losing myself in the music while also getting faded enough to take my mind off everything I was going through at the time. The second I walked into the house, I accidentally bumped into this 23-year-old dude named Aaron that I had been crushing on for months. The only thing I really knew about him besides his name was that he was once friends with my older brother Blue and that he had a younger brother named DeAndre. When I saw his fine ass that night at the party, standing against the wall, wearing a fresh white tee over his milk chocolate frame, I told myself that I had to have him, and so I did. High off the blunts being passed around and feeling tipsy from the Remy and Coke that I was sipping on, I casually started dancing with Aaron as the song You're My Little Secret by Escape blasted through the living room speakers. His hands gripped my ample ass as my tongue slipped down his throat. Then he whispered in my ear and told me how much he wanted to fuck. So I grabbed him by the arm and we snuck off down the hall to Peanut's room, where I allowed him to have his way with me. I didn't expect to see or hear from him after that, but I did anyway, and we had a little something going on that secretly lasted for a few good weeks. The day that I found out I was pregnant was the same day that Aaron got shot in the head. My whole world came crashing down after that, because as soon as I thought I had found a little bit of sunshine in my rainstorm of a life, he was taken from me, just like everyone else. My grandparents were sort of upset with me when they found out that I was pregnant, but since I was a straight-A student and was already a sophomore in high school, they got over it by saying that everyone makes mistakes. A few weeks later, my grandmother sat me down and made me promise her that I'd do whatever I had to do in order to take care of my child and to also finish school, unlike my mother and aunts. I gave birth to my son Jasper 3 months after my 15th birthday, and I knew at that moment that I had to grow the fuck up. Red told me that as long as I stayed out of trouble, she would watch my son for me during the day while I played catch-up in school, since I had missed the first semester of the year. Everything was going to plan, but then I messed it all up and ended up having to spend the whole summer in juvie because I got caught shoplifting with Velvet, Spice, and Ebony at Hilltop Mall this past April. Funny thing is, we were able to get away from security and make it to the car that Ebony had, but the cops arrived and stopped us before we even had a chance to drive off. I probably would have gotten a warning and had to do community service as punishment for my crime, But because Ebony's dumbass wasn't straight up with us about how she got that damn car in the first place, we were arrested and charged not just for shoplifting, but for driving around in a stolen car with a 9mm under the seat and a zip of weed in the glove box. Red had scraped together the money for a lawyer to represent Spice and I, but the judge didn't want to hear anything he had to say. She excused Ebony, Spice, and Velvet, but for some reason she decided to make an example out of me, saying that I was the ringleader and that I needed to sit my ass down in a juvenile detention center for the next 4.5 months until school started back up. Once I was released, I immediately went to work to try and pay Red back for the money she spent. Luckily, a friend of hers was able to get me a job at Nelson's grocery store in MacArthur, where I've been working every day after school for the last couple of months. So yes, she had good reasons to be pissed off at me for skipping school today to watch Tanisha's kids, but at this moment, I really didn't want to hear it. Sick auntie my ass, you need to call Rico and tell him what's going on, because it doesn't take no damn 8 hours to go to a hospital that's practically down the fucking street. Even a blind man could see that she played your ass. Red rolled her eyes and said as she grabbed her purse and keys off the counter. Leaving so soon? I sarcastically asked. Hell yeah, I got shit to do. And speaking of sick relatives, Pops wants to see you. So if and when she gets back, try and make it to the hospital before visiting hours are up, okay? I nodded my head, then thanked her for the food and diapers as she walked out the door, and I told her that I'd see her at home, hoping that it'd be more sooner than later. Chapter 3. Spice. Hurry up and bring your ass in the house. Peanut stood on the front porch yelling as I came walking down the block. It was a little after 6 p.m., and I had finally made it home after spending a little one-on-one time with the same guy I was fighting a grizzly on the bus over earlier that morning. It was safe to say that for the last couple hours, Daryl had taken my mind completely off of everything that had happened today. But as soon as I got within 50 feet of my house, reality set back in, and I now had to deal with my big sister, who I had been dreading to see since the moment Miss Clarkson dialed her number. Nana told your little fast ass to stay out of trouble, so why the fuck can't you just honor her wishes and do that? She said once I reached the foot of the driveway. I already had a headache from that one girl pulling my hair, plus my high was starting to come down. So the last thing I wanted to hear was Penelope going off on me like she was somebody's mama. Obviously, it's not meant to be because shit just seems to pop off whenever I'm around. Penelope looked at me like she wanted to jump off the porch and slap the dog shit out of me, so I knew I had to quickly explain my case before she did just that. Peanut, I didn't even start that damn fight. Keisha, I'm 2 seconds away from punching you in your fucking throat. You think I'm really finna believe that lie? Hell, I'm still trying to figure out how the hell you got kicked out of school when the shit just started. I didn't get kicked out of school. I got suspended. There's a difference. I rolled my eyes and said, secretly hoping that for once I was right. No, fool, they're talking about expelling your hot-headed ass. The principal told me so herself, which you would have known had your ass been at that office when I got up there. I swear, it's always something with you, Keisha. Every other week, like clockwork. It never fails. None of this was even my fault. I mean, what was I supposed to do? 4 girls were jumping Velvet at one time, so yes, I decided to help my cousin out. I'm sorry, but that doesn't give them the right to expel me. This is bullshit, Penelope, and you know it. Miss Clarkson has been looking for a reason to throw me out of that school since day one. Yeah, and she finally found one, Keisha. Look, I understand you wanting to help Velvet out and all, but come on now. You and I both know her mouth gets her into a lot of shit that you and Nikki always have to bail her out of. Next time, you need to just let her little ass get jumped, because I can't keep going down to your school and shit every time you decide to be Layla Ali. Nikki. I seriously can't believe this bitch. As soon as she walks through the door, I'm punching her in her fucking throat. I said to myself after seeing that the digital clock on the stove said 2:45 a.m. After pacing back and forth for a few minutes, I decided to pick up the phone and dial Rico's number. I knew that I should have called much sooner, but the naive teenager in me thought for sure that this hoe would have brought her ass home. The phone started ringing in my hand before I could even press a button, and my first thought was to curse this careless bitch out for leaving her kids with me, but I decided to hear what it was she had to say first. "Hello?" I answered with much irritation in my voice. "J baby, it's me. That bitch still ain't back yet?" Rico's voice boomed in my ear, catching me completely off guard. "No, and I've been here all day and night waiting for her to show up," I said, hoping that he wouldn't yell at me for not calling him sooner. "All right, just sit tight. I'm on my way." I hung the phone up, then placed it on the coffee table and sat back down on the couch and prayed that Tanisha would come walking through the door within the next hour. I then laid down and closed my eyes for a few minutes, only to wake up to the annoying sounds of a Meow Mix commercial playing on the TV. I grabbed the remote from the floor and turned it off, then ran my hands across my face. When I sat up on the couch, I noticed a bit of light peeking through the blinds, slightly brightening up the room. I got up and saw that it was a little after 7 and thought that maybe Tanisha had possibly crept back in while I was sleeping, but I had a feeling that didn't happen. As I walked down the hall to check on the little ones, I peeked in her room to see if I was right. After seeing that her bed was untouched, I shook my head and sighed, then went into the children's room to get the baby boy who was standing up in his crib smiling and waiting for me to pick him up. "Finally," I said to myself a few minutes later once I heard a set of keys rattling on the other side of the door. I thought that maybe Tanisha had finally decided to come home, but to my surprise when the door opened, she wasn't the one who was standing there. "Where the fuck her ass at?" was the first question out of Rico's mouth when he walked in and saw me sitting there on the couch changing his baby's diaper while his other son and daughter sat there watching some Disney show. "I don't know. My guess is that she's still with whoever it was she jumped in the car with yesterday," I told him. "I don't believe this shit. So she just dropped the kids off with you and been out all night?" he asked as he sat his keys on the counter and placed a black duffel bag on the floor. "Yeah, basically." "How'd you know I was over here last night? Did Red call you?" I asked, already knowing that my aunt must have got off work and saw that I still wasn't at home. He said, "Hell yeah, she did. She left a voicemail on my phone cussing me out, and when I called her back, she told me what was going on. But I'm still trying to figure out why it was her that called and not you," he said as he walked over to me and took his youngest son out of my arms. "'Cause I know how you get, and I didn't want you yelling at me, so I decided to just wait and see if she was going to bring her ass home." "Yeah, well, next time." "Nah, wait, scratch that. There ain't gonna be no next time. I don't want you babysitting my kids unless I ask you to. Don't do shit for her ass anymore. I don't care what it is. If she asks you for a piece of gum, you better call and ask me first," he said as he walked into the kitchen and began making his son a bottle of formula. "Okay, but for the record, I didn't want to watch them in the first place. As a matter of fact, I didn't even agree to it." "What you saying?" "I'm saying that she wasn't trying to hear it. I told her that you would be pissed and that I had to go to school, but she started begging, saying that her aunt was in the hospital and that she would only be gone for a couple of hours. Then she hopped in the car with a couple of guys that she claimed were her cousins and drove off." I saw the way Rico's jaw clenched and could tell he was getting upset. "She ain't got no damn cousins. Hell, her ass don't even have a damn family like that. Look, do me a favor. Stay here until I get back, and if she comes home before I do, call me, all right?" he said as he sat the baby in the high chair and left, only to return 40 minutes later with some breakfast food for me and the kids. He sat around for a couple of hours making calls while waiting to see if she was going to bring her ass through the door, but she didn't. "I'll be back in a few. If the phone rings, answer it, all right?" He came out of his room and said as he grabbed his jacket off the couch, "Okay, but what if she comes back while you're gone?" I asked, unsure of where he was about to go or what he was about to do. "Just call me and don't leave until I get back." Spice. Keisha, get your lazy ass up. Just because you got kicked out of school doesn't mean that you get to sleep all damn day. My sister yelled as she came walking in the room. "Come on, Peanut, it's Friday. Just let me sleep," I said while pulling the covers over my head. "No, now get your ass up and clean the kitchen like I asked you to do last night," she shouted as she grabbed the pillow from our younger sister's bed and began hitting me with it. I threw my covers back and sat up, trying to snatch the pillow from her hand, but she kept swinging it at me. "All right, Peanut, damn, stop hitting me." "Well, then get your ass up," she said as I grabbed my pillow and threw it at her. "That's why you missed, punk." She laughed while taking a seat on the other bed to put her heels on. As I sat there, yawning while running my fingers through my hair, I looked at my older sister and noticed that she had on a black knee-length skirt paired with a matching blazer and red blouse. She even had her hair pulled back in a tight bun, with our grandmother's pearls draped around her neck. "You look nice. Where the hell are you going?" I asked, knowing damn well it wasn't to a job interview. Penelope pretty much had it made, working part-time at the clinic during the day while spending most of her nights at the strip clubs in the city, where she made most of her profit. I got an errand to run in the city for Marley, but first, I'm gonna go see about getting them to keep you in school so you don't end up on the streets like Mom and Brenda, she said, standing in front of the mirror as she put her earrings on. "Hold on. So what are you saying? That if I don't go back to school, then I'ma end up being a crack hoe with a bunch of kids that I won't take care of?" "No, that's not what I meant, Spice," she sighed, rolling her eyes with irritation as she turned towards me and continued. "Listen, what Nana said is true. You and I are all we got, and we gotta look out for each other. I don't want to see you drop out of school only to get turned out by some random motherfucker and end up on the streets. That's all I'm saying. The shit's done happened to too many girls around here, including Brenda, and I don't want to see it happen to you." "Aw, Peanut, you really do love me, don't you?" I teased as she shook her head no and then smiled. "Yeah, sometimes. Now tell me, how do I look?" "Like a librarian? But why? And when did you start running errands for Marley?" She quickly dismissed my questions by telling me not to worry about it, and then walked out of the room, yelling at the little ones who were jumping on the couch. "Wait, so how long are you going to be gone?" I jumped out of the bed and asked as I followed her down the hall towards the living room. She stopped in the middle of the floor, looking at me out the corner of her eye as she grabbed her coat from the chair. "Hopefully not that long." "Why?" "Just asking. Spice don't have nobody up in here while I'm gone." "I won't. But what about the babies? Do I gotta watch them?" "Hell no. I don't trust you with the kids." She laughed as she put my little nephew's shoes back on. "What's that supposed to mean?" I said, feeling very offended. I considered myself a good babysitter. None of these kids ever got hurt in my care. "Spice, the last time I told you to watch them, Lauren took the scissors and cut Anaya's hair, and Lenny was down the street in the neighbor's yard." Okay, first of all, that wasn't my fault. I didn't know they were really playing barbershop. And the only reason why Lenny was down the street is because you weren't watching them. No, I was at first. But then Jordan ended up climbing up the ladder that your baby daddy left up outside and got on the roof. And that's exactly why you won't be watching them anymore. So yeah, I'm finna just drop them off at Aunt Marie's, so clean up the kitchen and listen out for the cable guy because he's supposed to be coming by today. Oh, and Spice, I'm serious. Don't have nobody up in here. What about Nikki? Can she come over? You know what I mean, Spice, she said as she gathered my nieces and nephews together and walked out the door. The cable guy showed up around 10 o'clock and immediately went to work, while I stayed in the kitchen and finished up the last of the dishes. By the time I was done wiping off the countertops and sweeping up the floor, the doorbell rang again, and I thought that it was Ebony trying to see if I wanted to hang out. Only she would show up at my door a day after I get suspended for defensively jumping into a fight that she supposedly caused. As I walked through the living room towards the front door, I couldn't wait to let her know that she and I were no longer cool because frankly, I was tired of always getting into trouble behind her bullshit. What are you doing here? I asked as soon as I opened the door and saw Carlos standing there instead. I should be asking you the same thing. Ain't you supposed to be at school? He asked, putting his hands up to the screen door as if to try and get a better look at me. I got suspended again, I said as I stepped out onto the porch. Now tell me why you're here. What do you want? I was looking for Black. Well, too bad. He's not here, and I don't think he'll be back until later on tonight, I told him. Well, is your sister home? He asked, looking around me as if he was trying to see who was all in my house. She went to the store. I lied, knowing that he was probably up to something, especially if he was asking for my sister, who didn't even like his ass. Either that, or he was probably asking because the last time he was over here, she threatened to shoot him for flirting with me. Well, then can I come in and chill for a minute? He walked up on me and asked. Nope, nobody can come in. I pushed him back and took the Black and Mild from his hand. Who said? My sister, and I don't want you in here either. He stepped closer, brushing his lips against my neck. You don't mean that. The cable guy came walking out the door saying that he was all finished and that he left the list of channels on the table next to the remote. You let him in, Carlos said, snatching the Black and Mild from my hand. He's the cable guy, you idiot. He had to come in. Well, shit. I was hoping Black would be here. I need to talk to him about something, but it's cool. I'll tell him about it later, he said, taking a few puffs. He then looked at me from the corner of his eye and said, since you ain't doing nothing, you want to ride with me and hang out for a little bit? I thought about it for a second and wondered how much trouble could I possibly get into if I hung out with him. So I said what the hell, then went inside to grab my jacket and locked the door.